Alright, Brent Forsey at TopVelocity.net. I'm going to do a pitching analysis here. Jesse, we're going to pair him up with Jason Mott. Let's take Jesse into his leg lift here. Let's take Jason into his leg lift. So let's take Jason at the point where his lift leg starts coming down, which would be right there. Alright, that first frame down, let's take Jesse into that same position. So we can see here, we don't have that momentum shift into the leg lift, which is so critical. When I watched Jesse here stay so balanced up here, this really kind of, I would bet $100 he has, because he's a lefty, he has a great pickoff move. And you can see, almost here it looks like he's even going to step over to the first base and pick off, but nobody's there. So I think he is so balanced up at leg lift because he really wants to be deceptive with runners on with this pickoff move, but you're sacrificing a lot of velocity in return. So that's one thing I'd have to say to myself. Even if I was the pitching coach and I had a lefty like this, I'd say, think about it this way. Let's look at the statistics. How many people get on base per inning with you? Okay, and then look at how many you pick off. So if you lowered that, how many people get on base, then of course your pickoffs would lower, but it's the same thing. So you just need to look at it as if you were throwing harder and allowed you to get more guys out the plate, then you were above average pickoff to move to first base wouldn't be so significant. So I think, somewhere in your career you're having a hard time getting guys out, so you found the value in picking guys off at first base. And I'm just saying this, I don't know who you are, I could be totally wrong about this here, but it just looks like you really have set yourself up. Your entire delivery is set up around your pickoff move. Tell me if I'm wrong. I would like to actually know if I'm wrong or right here. But either way, you're just too balanced up at your leg lift, so it's just going to be harder for you to get going. You're going to take longer to get going. Therefore, you're going to be slower through your stride, build less stride speed, stride power, and then that's not going to convert at front foot strike to torque, coil, and then the speed and velocity of the ball. So that being said, just keep that in mind. So let's take you into your load. So you can see as your lift leg goes, you really aren't moving but just kind of pushing your hip out. So even at this point, there's no momentum in your body at all. You could have ultimately just started here. If you put your foot down to the ground at this point and kicked your hip forward, you wouldn't be any different than where you are right now, because you don't have any speed moving in your body. Now look at Jason here. Look when his leg comes down just below his hip like you. Look where he is. Look how much farther off the rubber is you. He not only that, but he's moving into good flexion in the drive leg as he's moving forward. So there's a lot of movement here, a lot of momentum here at this point. It's that kind of controlled fall, but right from leg lift he's taken off, and that's really reflective of all high velocity pitchers. They don't sit and wait in their lift legs. They're going from the beginning that foot comes off the ground, and they have a lot of speed in their body before that front foot breaks their front hip, which we can see here. You can see this front foot is breaking the front hip. Look how far off the rubber he is. There's a lot of speed in his body. He's now starting to line up his force vector, which does come a little late. So in the case of where you are here, Jesse, you're going to be caught reaching out, which you do here, and because you're moving slow, your arm action is going to start early. So your arm action is starting early. You're starting to open your front leg before your force vector is even linear. Now watch Jason here. Jason can't move into full extension of the drive leg. We get our power through our drive leg. It's the only thing connected to the ground. That's the only way we can move forward. There's no other way to move forward in the delivery without the drive, pushing off the drive leg. Now, we could lift, well, technically we can lift and fall, but there still is push. That lift, as it moves down, it pushes down onto the drive leg. We can leave it at that, just lift and push down and fall down and generate power, but we're not going to generate as long of a stride. We're not going to generate as much speed if we're able to get the leg at the same time, or following that lift to load movement at the same time. If we can line up the force vector, which is the ankle to knee, if we can get that linear pointing towards the target, then we can move into a drive, triple extension, and that's what we see of all hard throwers, most hard throwers, let's say, because that's how they build long strides, that's how they build fast strides. There's no other way to do it. So there's not much getting around the drive leg, and that's why triple extension 3x pitching is such an effective approach. Not many pitching coaches teach it. More than likely you've never heard the term triple extension, but it implies that if we can extend the knee, hip flexor, and ankle, then we will not only achieve a full stride, but through those muscle groups we will have developed a lot of power. And also the 3x mechanics show how that also creates optimal hip rotation. All right, so that being said as well, we've got to get this linear. So you can see here Jason gets it almost completely linear. It's in line at this point to, let's see, it's in line at this point just above the hips. I like it to get below the hips, but you'll notice, excuse me, next frame, he's moving in a knee extension but still lining up the force vector, and then he gets full extension with the force vector in that perfect linear position, and he has yet to move into ankle extension. So at this point he still has the ankle to extend through, and look how linear he is now. Even pitchers that are late getting the force vector in line, they rarely ever get, before their ankle kick, the leg this linear. Now you can see next frame he kicks the ankle through, and that pops the hip flexor out, and then this is as he lands, he creates this slightly late hip rotation because that ankle kick was so powerful with finishing his triple extension, he was able to pop the hips completely through with the shoulders still closed, and that's what we're trying to hit. This is really the essence of 3x pitching. It shows the stride power. If he's able to achieve triple extension at or before front foot strike, we will see that stride power convert to hip rotation, and that explosive hip rotation at front foot strike is what's going to separate our hips and shoulders. Now that's so important because the case study that an MPA did in 2005-2006 that said 80% of velocity comes from a pitcher's ability to separate his hips from shoulders at front foot strike. So if this is 80% of his potential velocity, you can see he's pretty much reached that potential. Now that study also talks about the other 20% comes from those linear movements. So we can see here as well, he has a very, he has a fully extended, and he's off the rubber, so we know it was an explosive move, and it also gave him a full stride. So we can see that more than likely he has that other 20%. So there's a good chance he's maxed out 100% of his velocity at this point. So let's see what you're capable of doing. So you open up your front foot. So when you open your front foot, that triggers hip rotation. That forces the front hip to start to rotate, which we can see here. And the back leg comes in late and gets linear, but as you can see, you don't actually move into extension. You just fall from that position. Now, it's not enough just to take these mechanics of triple extension, and when you're at this point of your delivery, just to jump through or extend through, because what's going to happen is if you do not have the motor coordination to turn that into hip to shoulder separation, it's really not going to do anything for you. More than likely, it's just going to make things worse. Definitely, more likely unravel what you already have. So this really is a total approach. It's something that you've got to learn on the strength and conditioning level to be able to have the power to move, not just through these mechanics, but quickly through these mechanics, because that's really the only way it's going to convert to torque at the end. Now, also, you got to, through the program, move through the motor coordination, which is the drills that we do to train the body to program in these movements, these sophisticated power pitching movements that we have to work within their components, within their parts, so then we can apply them all together through a delivery that moves at the speed of less than 2 seconds, specifically in these elite pitchers. So like I said, it takes an intense approach. It's not just taking the one component of triple extension and trying to apply it. It doesn't work that way. So just to keep that in mind. So you can see you kind of fall into this position. So you're still stuck on your rubber. So that means you built no power. You're in a short stride. So your release point is farther away from the hitter. We know there's a big advantage to how close we can get the release point to the hitter as well. And that's another kind of icing on the cake for this 3X approach. And on top of that, because you don't have the speed and power, there's just no way you're going to get hip to shoulder separation. So you can see your hips aren't through, so now your hips have to come through late, and once they come through, we just see the hip, and back shoulder moving together, and that means it's in sync, and that means there's no separation. So that's not good. You can see here with Jason, when his back hip comes around, his shoulder's behind it, not in sync with it. Back hip comes around quickly, and the shoulder stays behind or separate, because we can see his right pocket here, and his arm is still pointing back to second base. Once your left pocket as a lefty points to first base, your elbow is pointing right there with it. You can see the difference. Y'all are in the same hip position, or at the point of your hips pointing towards the target, but Mott still has his shoulder back, and your shoulder is around, and you're already externally rotated. And it's just the difference of that type of separation, meaning also the MPA proved that most elite pitchers that are 90 miles an hour up are in a 40 to 60 degree, or have 40 to 60 degrees of separation. So you're looking with Jason here, if his first angle or his hip angle would, if you drew a line from left to right hip, which basically would go from the crowd back here straight to the camera, and then you drew the line through the shoulders, which basically go from the catcher to second base, that angle of degrees or in between those two lines, with the case of Jason here, would be around, let's say, 45-50 degrees. In the case of you're looking at 0, you're looking at nothing. So basically torquing your body back, your upper body back with your hips open, and putting in or dialing in that 40 degrees to 60 degrees, you're going to jump up a good 10 to 15 miles per hour in velocity. That's where it's simple, but it's not simple to apply. So it's how do we create that kind of separation? And I really believe it comes to the hips. It doesn't come to the shoulders. You don't want to swing your arms back when your hips are going open. You want to get your hips open as quick as possible so they pull away from your shoulders. Because the initial approach, the approach of trying to swing your arms back, then we start to create things like the inverted W's, inverted L's, and we get the arm back into positions that are very vulnerable to the rotator cuff, or what we call the red zone, and then we wind up having arm injuries, and that really works against velocity. So alright, so you can see how this is really where it happens. If you're not implementing an explosive stride and converting that to hip to shoulder separation, you're not going to find yourself in a high velocity category, and we'll show that from here on out. So now when Jason's shoulders rotate, they rotate twice the speed of the hips or more. They basically are multiplied because of the torque in the core, and that's what creates that amazing external rotation with that forward trunk tilt. And then if he stays strong and stable in the front leg, which you can see he continues to extend and stabilize that front leg as he moves into release, then he puts himself into this high velocity category, which is that awesome forward trunk tilt with that early internal rotation and front leg extension. And we can see the difference between you. You're going to finish upright with the bent front leg, late release. You can see you're not even internally rotated. Your arm is still extended or externally rotated. So you put yourself in a low velocity category. So if you can't hit it here effectively and correctly, then you're not going to find yourself in a high velocity category from there on out. Everything else is a reaction to this position. So I hope this video helps get you on track. If you have any questions, please post them here, and I appreciate you.